Hello, boys and girls of grade 5. I hope you all are well and ready for today's class. I'm happy to be here, and I'm sure that we will have an enjoyable time in this session. In this lesson, we will be completing the final sets of rules related to subject and verb agreement. If you have been counting, you would have noted that we have done a total of 12 rules so far. And today, we will be looking at the final 3 rules. So, boys and girls, without delay, let's get into it. We are now at Rule 13. And it states, sometimes the subject is separated from the verb by attached phrases. Some examples of attached phrases are with, along with, besides, as well as, together with, in addition to, accompanied by, unlike, like, as, including, and not. So, how do we identify these attached phrases? An example would be, my sister, as well as her friend. Another example might be, the pupils accompanied by their teacher. But boys and girls, do you know that at Rule 13, we are told that we must ignore the attached phrase and focus on the subject of the sentence. So, we must not look at the attached phrase in order to choose our verb, but we need to focus on the subject of the sentence. Therefore, boys and girls, the verb does not agree with the attached phrase, but it must agree with the subject of the sentence. Let's look at these examples so we can make a distinction between subjects and attached phrases. The first example is, Mr. Chin, as well as his workers, is seated. We were told from the given list that as well as is an attached phrase. So, boys and girls, in this sentence, the attached phrase is as well as his workers. We need to ignore this phrase. So let's blot out as well as his workers. So, what is the subject of this sentence? Yes, the subject of this sentence is Mr. Chin. Is Mr. Chin singular or plural? Well, Mr. Chin only refers to one person, and therefore it is a singular subject. So, boys and girls, since the subject is singular, our verb must also be singular. So, the sentence would read, Mr. Chin, as well as his workers, is seated, since is agrees with the subject, Mr. Chin, and not with the attached phrase, as well as his workers. Let's look at another example so we can understand this rule a bit clearer. The soldiers, together with the police, are carrying out joint patrols in the community. We were told in the given list that together with is an attached phrase. So the attached phrase in this sentence is together with the police. We need to ignore. So let's blot out together with the police. Let's find our subject. What is the subject of this sentence? Definitely, it is soldiers. And so, soldiers is a plural subject. And so, we would need a plural verb. So the sentence would read, the soldiers, together with the police, are carrying out joint patrols in the community. We chose are because are agrees with the subject soldiers, not necessarily the attached phrase together with the police. Given that this rule might seem a bit complex, let's look at some other examples. When I read the sentence, you will identify the attached phrase, ignore it. Then you will identify the subject and the appropriate verb. Let's go. Michael, like Gabriel, plays football on the same team. What is the attached phrase? And then, what is the subject of this sentence? Yes, the attached phrase is like Gabriel, and we must ignore that. The subject of the sentence is Michael, which is singular, and the verb is also singular, which is plays. Let's look at another. The passengers, along with the flight staff, were preparing themselves for an emergency landing. What is the attached phrase? And what then is the subject and the correct verb within the sentence? Definitely, our attached phrase is along with the flight staff. And so that we must ignore and focus on the subject, which is passengers. And we would use the correct verb were, which is also plural. So let's take a look at this exercise so that we can apply Rule 13. Number 1. Shania, like her mother, something charity to the needy. Let's identify the attached phrase, boys and girls. The attached phrase in this sentence is like her mother. However, the subject of the sentence is singular, Shania. And so we must use a singular verb. So the sentence would read, Shania, like her mother, gives charity to the needy. Gives is singular and it agrees with the subject Shania. Number 2. The politicians as well as the reporter, something here. Our options are is or are. But first, let's identify the attached phrase so that we can simply ignore it. The attached phrase in this sentence is as well as the reporter. And so we need to look at the subject, which is politicians. And that there is a plural subject. So, boys and girls, the best option would be are. The politicians as well as the reporter are here, since are agrees with the plural subject, politicians. Lastly, the fork, unlike the knives, something wrapped in napkins. Our options are is or are. What is the attached phrase in this sentence? Yes, it is unlike the knives. And we need to ignore the attached phrase and focus on the subject of the sentence. The subject of this sentence is fork. So what then would be our answer? Definitely, fork agrees with the singular verb is. And so the sentence would read, the fork, unlike the knives, is wrapped in napkins. So let's take a look at Rule 14. After the expressions neither of or either of, a singular verb is used. So, boys and girls, we do not focus on the words coming after these expressions, but once we identify neither of or either of, we take a singular verb as our answer. For example, neither of the girls is happy. We might be tricked because we saw girls, but the expression neither of always takes a singular verb. So we say neither of the girls is. Also, either of the men needs the toolkit. We chose needs because either of takes a singular verb. So, boys and girls, I would like for you to try these two sentences on your own. You will choose the correct form of the verbs in brackets to complete each sentence. Number 1. Either of the nurses something the lab results for the doctor. Your options are carries or carry. And neither of the children something the results of the test. Knows or no. Take some time to jot down your correct answers in your exercise books. So let's check in with those answers. For number 1, you should have either of the nurses carries the lab results for the doctor. And number 2, it should read, neither of the children knows the results of the test. If you have both of those answers, you should give yourself a tap on the back. Let's move on to our final rule for subject and verb agreement. Boys and girls, you must pay keen attention to this rule since it can get a bit tricky. Rule 15 states, when two subjects are separated by neither nor or either or, the verb agrees with the subject closer to the verb. So, boys and girls, for this rule, it is important for us to first examine the subject coming closest to the verb in the sentences. Let's look at the examples so that it can help us to further understand this rule. The first one, neither the boy nor the girl. And so we have neither nor separating two subjects, the boy and the girl. So the sentence reads once again, neither the boy nor the girl something the guilty one. Just before the missing space, we must examine the subject that is closest to the verb. The subject closest to the verb is the girl. The girl is singular. And so, boys and girls, we must use a singular verb also. So the answer for number 1 would be, neither the boy nor the girl is the guilty one. Number 2, either the parents or their babies, something allowed in the clinic by 9 a.m. We have the expression either or, separating the subjects, parents and babies. We must look at the subject that is closest to the verb. The subject closest to the missing space, boys and girls, is, yes, it's babies. Babies is a plural subject, and so we must choose a plural verb. So our answer would read, either the parents or their babies are allowed in the clinic by 9 a.m. Another example, neither the boy nor the girl something able to use the computers. We have neither nor separating the boy and the girl. To choose the correct verb, we must look at the subject that is closest to the missing space, and that is the girl. Girl is singular, and so our verb must be singular also. Our answer would then read, neither the boys nor the girl was able to use the computers. And lastly, either the maid or the children something the house. Either or separates the subjects maid and children. However, the closest of those subjects to the verb is children. And so children, being plural, must take a plural verb also. The answer would then be, either the maid or the children clean the house. So, boys and girls, it is important that if we have subjects being separated by either or neither nor, we check to see what is the subject that is closest to the verb. Is it singular or plural before we make our choice in choosing the correct verb? Let's take a look at this exercise. Number 1. Neither Tiffany nor her cousin something the direction to the mall. Know or knows. What is the subject coming closest to the verb? That subject is cousin. Cousin is singular, and so we will need to choose knows. So the first one would be, neither Tiffany nor her cousin knows the direction to the mall. I will leave you to do the other 3 on your own. Either Penelope or he something to clean the classroom. Has or have. Either the cherries or the plums something left on the table for you. Was or were. And lastly, neither Marlon nor his 3 friends something attending the show. Is or are. For the first one, you should have either Penelope or he has to clean the classroom because the subject coming closest to the verb is he being a singular pronoun. The next one should read, either the cherries or the plums were left on the table for you because plums being closest to the verb is plural and therefore we should choose a plural verb also. And lastly, neither Marlon nor his 3 friends are attending the show because friends being closest to the verb is plural and so our verb must also be plural. So boys and girls, let's recap. Today we learned that when we are met with the expressions neither of and either of, we must use a singular verb. Also, where we are met with neither nor or either or, we must ensure the verb agrees with the subject closest to it. And finally, when we see attached phrases, it is important that we ignore the attached phrase and focus on the subject of the sentence to choose the verb. Since we have done a total of 15 rules, it is important that you complete as many practice exercises as possible in order to cement this concept. I would therefore encourage you to complete such exercises in the new Junior English Revised at pages 72 to 76 and any other English language textbook. So boys and girls, I also encourage you to continue to work diligently so that you can be the best version of yourself. Do revise your notes regularly and intentionally. At this time, I'll say goodbye for now until we meet again for another English lesson.